is there a certain thing? Would it be safe that there's a certain thing to say also that there's a client maturity? And let me explain where I'm coming from here, because the top guys, the top direct response guys who know that it's about conversion as opposed to traffic, they still need to generate traffic. However, they know their numbers, they know their follow-ups, they've written some really unbelievably direct response copy for sales letters and things like that. If they bring something to you, is that a different conversation? Because you can clearly see that they know what it entails, and they know that, hey, listen, I might even go slightly negative to start with in order to generate this. Is there a maturity of client that makes it easier for you?
That's a brilliant question, and the answer is actually yes. For instance, and I've recorded a couple of interviews recently with Dr. Glenn Livingston.
That's who I was referring to, because I mean, he's about as sharp as they come to.
Oh man!
And I mean, the guy at times for certain campaigns will have a year or two of campaigns and things like that, follow-ups and so on and so forth.
Yeah. So he's really incredibly sharp marketer, hugely experienced, hugely mature in this whole thing. He used to do PPC for himself. He built an agency actually, which he then sold, Rocket Clicks.
Yeah.
And he's now doing his own thing, as you know, in lead generation for his own coaching.
Coach Certification Academy.
Coach Certification Academy, absolutely. Fabulous thing that is. And I actually manage his campaigns for him, and he's quite open about that. But he's a guy who's exceptional.
He is.
Really knows the whole process, and he controls it. That's the other thing. He's totally in control of the whole end-to-end thing, and he knows the conversion rates step by step by step by step, all the way from the money out to the money coming back in. And if you're not in control of every little piece of that, which includes your website and your pages and your sales process and everything else, and if you're not open to other ideas and suggestions and so forth, people sometimes are so opinionated about things. It's like, well, this is how we do that, and that's it, and we're not going to change it. And I'm like, well, I'm out of here, because you're paying me to get my take on things, which is based on seeing a lot of different advertisers. This is the thing about being an agency. You see a lot of different advertisers, a lot of different things going on, and you've got a much, much bigger picture than any individual organization's ever going to have. So, and it comes back to something you and I talked about in terms of advice, if you like. People can pay you money to get consulting, which could be considered a form of advice. And if people pay me to consult, then fine. I will take the money, and I will do the consulting with them, and I will offer them the best consulting advice that I can give based on my years of experience and all this other stuff. But they don't always take it.
Yeah.
Because they're just opinionated about the way things should be rather than the way things are. Perry talks about that a lot. Perry Marshall talks about that a lot. Are you in the should be world, or are you in the as it is world? As engineers, which I am, which he is, which a lot of us marketers are, we're in we're parameter driven, we're data driven, we ask questions and we expect direct answers, and we deal with things as they are. If that's an outcome, that is an outcome, whatever it is that you see. That's how it is. Can you change it by whining about it, bitching about it, whatever? Of course you can't. You've got to do something concrete about it. So it's yes, in the lead gen thing, most of the time, I won't manage folks' campaigns unless you've got somebody who really knows end-to-end and has got full control and knowledge of all the numbers, and there's enough data there, to make good, solid decisions about. Glenn gets lots of leads, as you might imagine, and he knows what he's doing with that whole thing. If you've got somebody who's only making one lead conversion a day,
it's a little bit different. I think you also hit something on a nail on the head, because I'm gonna people are gonna go and see sort of Glenn's review of your book, very complimentary, and it's almost like here is an AdWords thoroughbred, which he is,
Oh man, yeah, absolutely.
And the good doctor's actually turning around and saying, you know what, I learned from this book, and
Yes,
I've been there, I've done that, I've got the T-shirt, I've written my own sort of manual. However, So there was, like what you're saying, there was an open mind. Not only was he,
Yeah.
is he a blue chip marketer in his own right, looking for
Yeah.
lead gen? He's got an open mind. He's willing to say, "Dr, what have you got for me?" Or what
what do I need to do?
Yes.
Yeah.
So that's a big deal there.
And he will take that seriously. In my I've mentioned this before, and not a lot of people know this, but in years gone by, in my Buddhist practice, we had a thing called guidance. It's a two-edged sword, just like advice is. People are very free with advice. I never offer advice.
Yeah. And we've spoken offline a ton, and I've had a few things going on, as you well know. But no, there's a
exactly. So with the advice thing, I don't give advice. If somebody wants to know what my opinion is, I'll offer my opinion, and I will say, well, if I was in that situation, this is what I would do, but it's up to you, take it or leave it. I don't give advice, because usually only people give advice and then get very bent out of shape when the other party doesn't take it. Which you can't do. However, in the Buddhist practice, there was this thing called guidance, which if you wanted guidance, then you could ask a senior leader for guidance, but you were jolly well expected to obey the guidance. Because what's the point in requesting it otherwise? And you know what? The senior leaders who would be approached for guidance wouldn't always offer it.
Really?
Because there's such a responsibility of giving guidance. You expect that guidance to be taken, and you expect that guidance to be in the best interests of the party that you're giving that guidance to.
Wow. So, Dr, coming full circle, and just before we conclude, we have, in many of our chats, we've sort of gone to great lengths as to how you would qualify the sort of e-commerce process. The fact that you'll go in, you'll take a look, you'll make sure, you'll put some suggestions. If needs be, you'll put things together yourself, so you can then either hand it back or manage it for somebody. But what's the criteria for you now on the lead gen, as far as what if we've got a blue chip marketer on here, not a novice, someone what's that A, B, and C that they need to do in order for you to consider it?
Well, they've got to be in control of the whole thing end to end. And they really, it comes down to this simple thing of they've got to know the customer lifetime value. They've got to know what they can pay for a lead. They've got to know what they get back for that lead. And they've got to have enough volume going on that we can really make a difference, And we're always talking about, for me, if I'm doing that work, then I charge a big amount of money to do that work, because there's a lot involved. There's a lot of work involved, and this is why I really stopped doing it, because I had to price myself out of the market, because really you've almost got a full-time person on your staff. In the lead gen game, something like Glenn's thing with the Coach Academy, if you just go after that, the whole length and breadth of that rabbit hole, it's huge. So it's not a trivial thing to be doing that. And so I would have to be spending a lot of my time on that whole thing. I've tried it, and expending a lot of energy and so forth. And if I'm not getting back the results that you want and need, then you're not going to see the value of it. And so it's not a good fit.
It's just totally different from a buy now button, huh?
Absolutely. Well, yeah, it is, because if you're buying, then money's changing hands, and that's a whole different, much more serious proposition.
Fantastic.
So in terms of lead gen stuff, then with rare exceptions, as we've talked about, like Dr. Glenn, I don't do the management any longer. We support on it if you want to ask questions about, what should I do, and how does this work, and what am I missing, and all that sort of thing. Then that's support that you will get from our membership community. More on that as we go forward, but and anybody who wants to get in touch and ask about that can certainly do so via Facebook or anywhere else. But we will have a paid membership community where people can get answers to these kinds of questions.
And of course some case studies from fellow lead gen people as well. There's the community there, isn't there?
Over time that will be the thing. So so our main emphasis is that we do what we do for e-commerce people, because we can follow the money and we know the value that we're bringing to this whole thing, and we're controlling it correctly. In lead gen, it's much more difficult.
Dia, as always, this was terrific. No doubt we will be talking in more detail of sort of the differences and, the focuses, the emphasis and that. But I do appreciate that. This was a fascinating discussion. Thanks ever so much for that.
You're welcome. What we got coming up next time for people? We're going to talk about, I think we agreed we were going to talk about cost centers. We talked about profit centers.
That's
There's
right.
a couple of podcasts on there and a couple of videos that we've done for profit centers. So that's the after, if you like. So what we're also going to do probably next or soon is we'll show off some cost center information so people can see, well, what am I looking at when I see, my AdWords campaigns here? Are they a cost center? Are they a profit center? I'm not seeing the same data that you showed off in the profit center videos, but, so what does a cost center look like? So that's the before bit rather than the after bit.
Yeah, absolutely. And as the good doctor said in his Amazon review, he said, turn AdWords from a cost center into a profit center. So we'll be able to look at that before and the after. So that's terrific. Thanks ever so much, dear.
Thanks, MM.